Make for interesting webinar filming, though.
Yeah. Good
I think we're on.
afternoon. We're on the VCOS weekly webinar series. Today, we're going to talk about change your behavior, the mental paradigm shift. And so, some people may be curious what we mean by that, and what does a mental paradigm shift mean? Well, as it says, we want you to change your behavior. We want you to change your thinking. We want you to be more concerned about yourself and your personal health and wellness instead of most of us, fire chiefs, always worry about others' mental health and wellness. We have an excellent program today, and we're pretty excited about this. And we hope that you all will engage us through the chat session. And my name is John Buckman. I'm going to help facilitate this and going to share my experience as well. So we'll talk about that as we go here. So we do use voice over IP technology. If you have a problem, first thing I'll tell you is log off and log back in, and more than likely your problem will go away. There are some things in the handouts. There's a certificate in the handouts section, a blank certificate that you can use if you need certificate credit or need a certificate to get you credit for the training at your fire department. And we're glad that we finally got that working for you. So our two presenters with us today are two fire chiefs that have been here for a long time, been around the IFC for a long time, and both of them have been retired for a little while. But I'm going to go to Chief Kevin McGee first and let Kevin introduce himself. Kevin?
Thank you, Chief Buckman. My name is Kevin McGee. I'm, I guess, a 44-year veteran of the fire service. I did a 39-year career in Prince William County, and went through every rank in our department and did my final 11 years as fire chief. I worked for the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and I'm currently interim fire chief in Waco Fire Department, Waco, Texas. And I'm glad to be here with you today.
Well, thank you. And Kevin doesn't talk about he doesn't brag about this, but Kevin managed a very, very large combination system. And if we think a small combination system is difficult, when you're managing several hundred volunteers and several hundred career firefighters, trying to keep that balance. And Kevin did a good job while he was the fire chief there in helping sustain that balance between the needs of the career people and the needs and wants of the volunteers. So we're glad Kevin's here today as part of our panel. And then Chief
Thank you.
Norman Collins is, again, a longtime fire service veteran. He's been on a couple departments, most recently retired as a fire chief. So, Norman, you want to explain a little bit more about you?
Thanks, Chief Buckman. And it's nice to be on with both you and Chief McGee. Welcome, everyone. Obviously, we're not only from the United States, from around the world. Welcome from Ghana, it looks like, from the chats that we've got. My name is Norman Collins. I recently retired in November as fire chief for San Juan Island, up in the as far north and west in the United States as you can get and still be in the United States. I could actually see Victoria and get to Canada easier than it was to get back to mainland Washington. As Chief Buckman mentioned, I've been with larger departments, Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue being the largest special protection district in Oregon. I was with them through the majority of my career. Chief of a small all-volunteer department. Had 35 members total. I was the first career chief that was hired on with them, and we grew that from an all-volunteer to a strong combination department. Was honored to serve on the Volunteer and Combination Officer Section Board for almost 9 years, 9 years, and have worked alongside many of you through different projects through VCOS, and we continue moving forward. But like many of us, when we retire, we move on. We don't sit idly by. So any of you know I couldn't stay idle, so now I'm working on finishing up a doctorate specifically in the use of crisis canines to combat mental health and improve our mental wellness, because we get into things that our minds and bodies are not supposed to respond to. And that's a lot of that paradigm that we're going to be talking about today, in how do we think, how have we thought, and how can we shift to be more mentally stable to support ourselves, our family, and our communities. Glad to be here. Welcome, everyone.
Well, thank you, Norvin. And we'll drop the chief titles. We'll just call each other by our first name. So, yes, I do recognize Yusuf from Ghana, who's there, a good friend of mine, and I'm sure you guys have met him. He's been to VCOS, he's been at Fire
Yes.
Rescue International, and he's the one that gave out those really nice shirts last year that I just wore my shirt about 2 weeks ago, Yusuf, here in Evansville. So, welcome and glad you're here. We'll hopefully get some comments from you. So let's start off with the first question of, how did stress impact your life as a fire chief? I'll go to Kevin first.
Well, I think just to tell a little bit of a background, when I was offered the chief's position by the county executive, who was my boss, one of the things he told me is, I want you to be able to take a vacation, go somewhere where we can't get in touch with you, go to Europe, so you can be recharged to be able to come back and hit the ground running. I took that advice, but I was still able to be contacted while I was in Scotland and Ireland and the other places in Europe that my wife and I traveled. I didn't realize how challenging from a stress-related perspective that the position was, how lonely it could be in the top position. It's really hard to understand what it's like being in the seat until you're in the seat. So it really came home to roost after my first year as being the fire chief. I had my NFPA 1582 medical physical, and the physician was like, "Oh boy, there's been some big changes since last year's physical with cholesterol, triglycerides, body fat composition, and others." And so I looked into what I could do to take better care of myself. I read a book called The Engine 2 Diet that actually one of my captains was reading, and he shared it with me. And I mentioned to the physician, the department physician, that you went right to recommending and prescribing statin drugs for me. But when I looked at the American Heart Association guidelines, the step before medication is therapeutic lifestyle change. So one of the things that I did was change my diet completely to a vegan diet, exercise more, fit that into my schedule, and I lost weight and I got back to normal, although the stress didn't seem to go away. So it seemed like I worried about everything, all the changes, all the issues that came forward. But one of the things I learned late as a fire chief is that the vast majority of that stress was perceived stress. That the way the issues unfolded and how the team came together, not only within the department and with our fire rescue system, but county executive's office and the other agencies of county government, the issues unfolded to get to good outcomes. So I wish I would have known. A little bit later, in the in this session, I'll talk a little bit about what happened to me shortly after I retired that is behavioral related as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Norvin, how did stress impact your life as the fire chief?
Well, as we all know, um, we're always looking at when we take on the role of being the chief. And I'm not saying it's just a fire chief, but everyone that I know that's in our industry isn't in it for themselves. They're in it to serve the community. So from that standpoint, we're always on, and we never, and the higher you get in your organizations, the more connected you are, and the more in tune with your community, that if there's a need, you want to be there for them, whether it's your community, especially your membership. And what tends to happen, and you can talk to my family, and many of you have, I know you two guys have had the opportunity to talk to my wife and daughter, they will share that because we're always focused on our departments and making them better and supporting the greater good, whether it's VCOS, IFC, IFF, whatever you're involved in, your church, your community, sometimes that becomes a higher priority than your family. Even though when we bring our new members on, what do we say? You need to have your list of priorities, and the fire department needs to come in position 4. We always say, take care of your spirituality, take care of your family, take care of yourself, and then comes the department. But in reality, we are the worst at actually balancing out and doing what we actually ask our membership to do. So stress, and like Kevin, my wife would cue in on things with me. Um, the ulcers, the stresses that cause GI issues. You know, when you're sleeping and you're lying flat and you're having the regurgitation from the evening, and you're like, well, wait a minute, that's not supposed to happen. A lot of that is stress induced because of the job that we want to do and the performance that we want to do in taking care of others. And so upon retiring, turning off that alarm so you're not worried about in the middle of the night it going off and you have to be getting up. So now our spouses and loved ones get to actually sleep through the night as well. But a lot of those other health issues, if you're focused on them and you listen, and I'm the worst. The other piece that came out as I did, and we can talk a little bit more about this as we go in, John, is fire service professionals, and this is public safety in general. It also is our military brothers and sisters. We like to say we're fine. If you hear an emergency responder, and those of you that are on with us on the broadcast, think about it for a second. When we're fine and we state that, we're anything but. That's the mental paradigm shift that we want to alter. That when we're feeling that we need to say we're fine, that's the time to take a pause, look in at ourselves and figure out what's really going on and be honest with ourselves, because we need to be there for our loved ones down the road.
You bring up some very good points, and I'll go ahead and, from my quick perspective as it relates to me, I was a volunteer fire chief and a state fire academy director in Indiana simultaneously. So you talk about being stressed. It's like, oh, how silly was I at that time? But I did it just like you all do, all the things that you've done. But Norvin, you mentioned the word spirituality, and I would tell you that I developed the 5 F's: family, friends, finance. Wait a minute, I'm forgetting one now. Family, friends, finance. Fire department was 5. I'll have to go look up that 5th one. I'll get back to that. Way to go, John.
Faith.
Faith. Hey, thank you. There you go. Faith, family, friends, finance, fire department. If you're a career person, finance and fire department will be the same one. But thanks, Kevin. That's good. But Kevin, you mentioned, and Norvin, you talked about it as well. But Kevin, you mentioned denial. Both of you talked about denial, about ignoring the signs and symptoms. And as you were talking, Norvin, fire chiefs, leaders, are servants, and that's
Right.
part of that philosophy that we talked about. So, Kevin, I'll go back to you and talk about a little bit about denial, and then Norvin will come to you and talk a little bit about the servant philosophy. and how to, I'll say, tone it down a little bit. Kevin.
Yeah, and I think the fire chiefs are the worst at denying. I always felt like I was fine. Um, that I, as you were pointing out, John, I'm here to help others and to support others and to move the department forward and to take down barriers. And um, it does become a 24/7 proposition. In fact, my wife called me 24/7 Kevin, which was meant to be a signal to, hey, you need to take breaks. And I think one of the things that I realized was, and I thought of being a fire chief as a marathon where you're constantly going. But really, what it should be is a series of sprints where you can take that sprint of doing what you need to get done, but then focus your attention on those other F's that you talked about, John, so that you do get some balance in your life. Um, Denial almost cost me my life just a few months after I retired. And I was exercising, and actually, I was doing a P90X routine at chest and back. So I was doing lots of push ups and one arm push ups. And I felt a pain in my chest, and I thought I pulled a muscle. And when I came home, my wife said, "There's something wrong with you. Um, Tell me what's wrong." I said, "I'm fine. Just give me some sparkling water. I'll be fine." And she said, "Well, I'm calling 911." "Oh, no, no, don't do that. I'll be fine. I just got done exercising and I pulled a muscle." Um, she insisted. And by the third insistence, I said, "Go ahead and call." And it was the last medic unit that I put in service before I retired that came to get me. Um, I think it was my conditioning that helped, but I would have denied that chest pain until I succumbed to it if it wasn't for my wife and emergency room that kept me overnight, and a cardiologist that got me into catheterization lab first thing in the morning, the following morning. So it's easy to get into the denial because there's always that next thing. And I kept pushing off retirement because I was in the denial of the department needed me. And as I was finishing up one major issue, I was getting into the next major issue and some system reform or system initiation of a new project or a new station or a new tactical unit or new training program. There was always something that held me back, and my family was pushing me to retire, that we needed some time to ourselves. And I denied that. And so I had a close call. Um, and I learned that it's better to retire a few months or maybe a year or two early than it is to try to retire even days too late.
Thank you. Thank you. Norman, anything you want to add on denial or servant leader philosophy?
Yeah, thanks, John. First, Kevin, I want to, and it's been interwoven here, and that is the awareness of our loved ones about us. A lot of times are far more in tune to what is going on with us
Yes.
than we are willing to admit. Goes
Yeah.
into that denial phase, right? Holly's always the same way with me. And so what I had agreed with her way back when, it sounds like you've done the same thing with your wife, and I know John's done with Leslie, is if they say something, we need to cue in and listen to them. My agreement with Holly is she knows I won't make appointments myself, but if she feels it's important, if she makes me the appointment, I go. Yes, I need to shift out of that mindset because I'm always fine. But that comes so true to roost that when you are working with your companies, and think about it. So those of you that are company officers or chiefs that are still active in the service, whether it's volunteer or career wise, think about how in tune you are with your membership. You know when they're having an off day. They know when you're having an off day. That means something. We need to listen to those little voices that state, hey, we need to do something, we need to listen. So tying that into the servant leadership, and there are so many different leadership theories out there. If you do a quick, whatever your search engine is, whether it's Google, Bing, whatever you name it, if you put in, or if you go to Google Scholar and you do leadership theories and frameworks, you're going to find a bazillion of them. And a lot of them are all the same. It's like I like to joke around with some of the other, oh, this exercise, oh, this one's a different one. It's this same exercise with a bluebird watching you. It's a new exercise. Some of the leadership theories feel that way. What I would say about servant leadership, to drive back to the question you had, John, was how do we continue to embrace the foundations and framework of servant leadership? I would alter that. And for those of you that want to do an academic search, look up authentic leadership if you're not familiar with it. Authentic leadership has a lot of the positives that servants have, but it's about you being authentic with yourself and with others around you. So if you're genuine, and I believe that the majority of our people that we work side by side in are genuinely care about others that they're working with and the communities that they serve. So if you're being genuine about that, it will help balance out some of that I always need to serve. Because you need to think about, we're not just serving our family, or I mean our fire department, we're serving our family, and we also need to serve ourselves so we don't get into a position like Kevin did, where that part gets pushed aside, because we will always push ourselves aside to support others.
Point in that you do not want to be a servant leader or an authentic leader to the point where you sacrifice your well-being for your department. Because the reality is that the three of us have figured out is when we left, our department still continued to function. And so I'm not saying you're not going to work hard, you're not going to push issues, but when you sacrifice your personal health and wellness for the betterment of the department, you're going to cheat your family out of you, and we don't want to do that. And it's very important. You mentioned vacation a little bit earlier. So one of you did. You know, I had a fire chief friend that got appointed back in January, and one of the things he said, I told the mayor, is I get 6 weeks vacation a year, and I plan on taking all 6 weeks. Thought, good. You understand you have a job to do, but there's a reason you have 6 weeks of vacation. So I know he's already taken one, and we're a little over 6 months into it, but he may have taken more than one that I don't know about the other one. So anything else, Kevin, you want to add on this?
Well, and you have to delegate too. When you take your break, somebody has to be the go-to person, so that when you get back from your vacation, you're not punished because you went on vacation trying to get caught up.
Or you have 300 emails to answer.
That's right. So I would just one other point from Norvin's comments. It's important for us as chiefs to set the example too. So if we're espousing that our department members should take care of themselves and have balance in their life, our department members watch every move that the chief makes. So they'll know if it's just lip service from you, or whether you're actually living the way that you're asking everybody else to live in your organization. So leading by example is critically important from a behavioral health standpoint. And one of the things that I've seen from a number of my colleagues is that we all seem to have behavioral health support systems um, that we encourage others to use. Um, we need to use it too. And
Yeah.
just to check in and to explain what's going on, because as Norman has pointed out, others are going to see things quicker that we need to address than we're going to see it ourselves from ourselves.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Norman, I want to ask you, how important is it for the leader, and this is probably more the top chief officers, to get out of their chair and away from their desk? How important is that to their overall mental paradigm?
Well, it's real simple. The answer is we have to. For those of us that way back when adopted, like Chief Buchanan and myself, early adopters of the iWatch, so much of an early adopter that we were following our iWatches coming across the boat from China as they were coming in for release day. So we had it. I know that you've got one, John, and otherwise, when it tells you to get up and move around for that minute, get up and move around. My Garmin watch tells me to move, the new additions that the technologies have, they tell you to take a moment and breathe. When you get stressed and you're sitting in the chair, not only is it not healthy for you physically, it's not healthy for you mentally. You've got to take a mindful moment and to recenter yourself. You'll think better, think clearer if you get up and move. It doesn't take much to get and move around for a minute. And if you've been sitting there long enough, it probably means that you've been so focused on you're now excluding the others around you. Take that minute or two, get up and touch bases with your peers, with your department, with your loved ones, right? So get up and move. One thing, because again, like Kevin said, we're setting an example. Set a time that your minute goes off. You've been working for like a half hour, or whatever the case may be is, and it's like, let's get up and move. Grab your team and go for a walk, right? Figure out and think about ways that you can drive that fitness and that mental break into your organizations. And if you are leading by example and says, hey, let's go for a walk, you create a loop. Most of the stations are big enough, especially even small stations, big stations. You've got the ability to go out and walk some loops. It gets everyone moving, it gives a mental break, and it's very important to get up and move and not sit on your butts for too long a time, because it's really, really easy to do that.
Yeah. Kevin, anything to add?
Well, being sedentary is as bad as being a cigarette smoker. So exercising is essential. And, one of the things that was important to me was to be able to get in something every day. And I had the attitude of, even if it was a 15-minute workout, a short workout is better than no workout. And just to get into that routine where you're looking forward to being able to do that moving around piece. And I agree with Norman, just getting up and walking around, just taking a lap around is very healthy for you.
Yeah, I think
there's also,
go ahead.
There's also a lot of research and information out there about the benefits of meditation and being able to give your brain a rest. And it takes a little bit of practice to get yourself to that calm state of being able to getting into the mode of meditation. But it's something worth trying, learning about, and practicing, and getting that into your lifestyle also.
Yeah, I would tell you, I tried meditation, but and you can't get into meditation with just doing it practicing it for 7 days. You've got to make that long-term commitment. And Norvin, you want to add anything to meditation?
Yeah, and on your comment about you can't do it for 7 days. Think back, John, when we were doing presentations for Beyond Hoses and Helmets in 21st Century Leadership. One of the clips that we showed was it takes 28 days to create or break a habit. So you've got to do it on the long term.
Yeah.
The current term, whether you can fully get into the meditation with a lot of us, it's a matter of shutting down your brain and let it go into that mode. It takes a lot of practice to get to that point. I'm still working on it. But you can have mindful moments without a full being in the meditative mode. And what I mean by that is you could do something as simple as box breathing, which can take you a moment to center yourself, to refocus, and it's a box. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, hold it for another 4 seconds. Do that 4 or 5 times. You will be amazed at just taking a moment to do that, and calming and centering yourself allows you to focus better and engage better when you come out of it.
Great. Thank you. Well, I would, when you talked a little bit ago, Norvin, about our spouses knowing more about you than you know about sometimes. In Kevin's case, your wife saw something that you did not see or feel. And, I'm having back problems. Most of the people who know me know that. And I had a temporary pain stimulant device put in, went back to the doctor 8 days later. They took it out, and going to have a permanent one put in. But when I called Leslie and said, okay, we're going to have a permanent put in, she goes, well, I just want you to know, every day you get up, you moan and groan every time you move. But while you had that temporary device in, you didn't moan or groan one time.
Wow.
So they observe things that we don't observe. And so it's, again, you both have said it. Listen to your spouse. Listen to your spouse. And so, I mean, that's my quick little thing. So one thing we have not talked about, and Norvin, I'm going to come to you on this one, is not just sleep, volume of sleep, but about quality of sleep. Any comments on how that impacts your stress?
Yeah, it's huge, right? When you sleep, your body repairs itself both physically and mentally. So you have to get into that sleep mode. Look at some of the studies and some of the presentations that Dr. Jenke does about the importance of sleep. Some of the military studies. As we are working from our industry as emergency responders, whether you're in law enforcement, dispatch, fire EMS, we get into things that our brains need to process. And it's that sleep time that when we can get into the REM sleeps, that really lets our bodies recover. It's hard to do sometimes because if you're an active responder, especially within our volunteer ranks, that pager can go off at any time, and so you're on the edge, like Kevin was mentioning, and we've had peers that they wake up sweating because they're so on edge that we're going to have a call, right? It's getting into that restorative sleep pattern that really lets our body and minds recover.
Okay. Kevin, anything to add to that?
Well, and when you wake up exhausted, you're not sleeping well. I slept next to a cell phone and a pager for seemed like decades. That were interruptions to the sleep patterns. And there was one time I didn't answer the phone. Next thing you know, there's a police officer knocking at the front door because the communications center thought there was something wrong because I didn't answer the phone in the middle of the night. So trying to just find a way to get good quality sleep so that, and your body's going to tell you if you're sleeping well enough by the level of alertness, and if you're feeling that way when you do go in for your medical physical, explain to the doctors some of the things that you're feeling. Like, I feel exhausted, and I wake up, I'm still tired, and or for the back pain, that's a signal. That could be a signal for um, stress as well. I know I had uh, significant back issues, and it was all related back to internalizing stress.
And Kevin,
Well,
you were talking about your change in diet, and so I would pose this question to the two of you, both Kevin and John, from this standpoint. Um, our diets in today's day and age are not good with the amount of processed foods. And Kevin, you had mentioned that you'd turned to be a vegetarian. I think you said vegetarian, not vegan. And
Vegan.
there's those balance points.
Yeah.
Vegan, okay, right? That the how do we improve, because the foods that we're taking in can also impact our sleep because it throws off our system. So how do you adjust, and what do you think are important from a dietary standpoint? And then John, to juxtapose that into how do our volunteer predominant, because Kevin was with large departments, I've been with both large and small, but on the career side, it's very different to shut off and adjust when you're a volunteer with all the other things that are going on. So I would ask you to give some advice to our volunteer officers and leaders that are out there. How do you really harness that? Does that make sense, guys?
yep.
Yeah. You know, I had this conversation with a physician who was talking about, and I was talking about my therapeutic lifestyle change to a vegan diet. And I pointed out, is I come to the hospital and it's processed, unhealthy food that you have here, even in the hospital, of all places. And he agreed. He said, "Yeah, we're just as bad as everybody else." So, we have to take control of what we consume. One of the things that really helped me was an administrative assistant. Whenever I was invited to a function, my administrative assistant would call and say, "Hey, he has a restricted diet. Can you accommodate?" And in, I think, every case, they were able to accommodate. But we ought to think about what kind of food we provide to our members, how we educate our membership on diet and nutrition, um, so that they can be the best occupational athletes that they can be. And knowledge is power.
Yep.
And one of the responsibilities that we have as chiefs is to share that knowledge so that at the very least that our members can make a choice.
Yep.
And in a lot of cases, if you're recommending to do these kind of changes, people will comply.
Well, and I agree wholeheartedly. And you guys may or may not remember. I used to weigh 260, and I did get down to 180, but then because of my back issues, I went back to 200. But I've had that off for like 5 years, and it all
Good
has
for
to
you.
do with what you eat. And so, when my advice to the volunteers is contact a nutritionist in your area and have them come in, not one time, but maybe monthly for 6 or 9 months to talk about nutrition and invite the family. You can't just have the husband or the wife learn about nutrition and not have the whole family. But I will tell you, my insurance used to pay for me to go see a nutritionist, and I used it. And it was a she taught me what to eat, what not to eat. The processed food stuff, Leslie she's just a hawk on that now. It's like she doesn't like to do processed food, and because it's just not healthy for you. And so, yeah, you can buy chicken sliced up and all that kind of stuff, but you can also buy a breast of chicken, put it on the grill, and slice it up yourself, and it'll be healthier for you. So, but my big recommendation, my experience in this, Norvin, and thanks for asking that, specifically for volunteers and career people as well, is go see a nutritionist or have a nutritionist come to you. most of the time they're not going to charge you. All right. And if they're going to charge you, find somebody who won't charge you. But that'd be my big recommendation on, changing the way you eat. The
Well,
other,
and I
but
felt much better when I changed what I ate, and when I was looking at nutritional labels and um, uh, getting away from processed foods and fried foods um, and eating right and with the right proportions and losing weight and how much better I felt. And also, and I think Norman, you touched on this, is the timing of when you eat, which I was terrible with going to functions and eating late, coming home and going to bed. And the next thing you know, you're reaching for antacids for because you have heart.
yeah.
Uh,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go back to the quality of sleep comment, because we talked about a lot of things. And number one, I don't even remember. One of you guys might remember, how long are you not supposed to get on your phone or your iPad or some artificial computer light before you go to bed? That impacts your ability to go to sleep as well. I don't remember what it is, but I do know that that is an issue, and I'm horrible at it. Horrible at it. But you can't play on your iPad or your computer and then go to bed and think you're going to go to sleep. And play is not a word that I'm saying you play on it, but you can work on it. But I know that that has an impact. And then what's your guys' experience on the volume of sleep that you need? Um, how many hours of sleep should you have a night? Anybody want to bite on that one?
You're asking the wrong group because I know for a fact all three of us suck at that.
yeah,
They recommend as you get older, your sleep time will change. What you're getting into, the sleep time will change. I can't tell you specifically what they say right now. That I think that historically they always say you need 8 hours of sleep. I can't tell you the last time I had that. I think you guys are like I am. We probably get somewhere between 5-6 hours, and there's studies that actually show that if you get less than 6 hours of sleep a night, that you start to develop psychosis. I'm not saying that's true or not. This was something that was out before, but I don't have that, John. It's for me to say, hey, you need this amount of sleep, and I don't do that myself. Yeah, that's not exactly genuine. I it's a goal, but I have never been able to meet that one.
Kevin?
I've gotten better since I retired. And it seems like I had to be at work first thing, and then because of we have a large combination system. Um, I had the daytime schedule with county staff and the department members, and the evening was centered around the volunteer companies. So it was like 2 work days, and that impacted my sleep patterns in a big way. And it wasn't as though I was able to just come home and go to bed. I needed to have some wind down time, so I probably got the 5 or 6 hours of sleep per night, and then being woken up pretty regularly with phone calls and pagers going off, which didn't help. But after retirement, I noticed a big difference in being able to sleep on a regular schedule and with uh, more like 7.5 hours of sleep per night, which is what I needed.
Right. Well, the volume of sleep, because I have a CPAP machine, I know exactly how much sleep I get every night. And so I'll say a month ago, I had to go back to my sleep doctor for my annual checkup, and she was very happy because I was at 7.6 average hours of sleep a night. And
Wow.
so, and I will tell you, Kevin, you mentioned it. If I only get 5.5 hours, when I get up, it's like I am not ready to get up, but the alarm goes off or whatever. The other thing that I do to help me get ready for sleep is I want an hour to read a book,
Yeah.
not on my iPad, but actually a paper bound book. and that helps calm me down, so to speak. And I think that helps me get a little better quality of sleep. I don't know if you guys have a technique that you might use to help you get better sleep. Doesn't look
I'll
like
say
it.
that to tie into that, John, you need to have a wind down plan, and it needs to become routine. Doctor by the name of Doc Parsley, you can look at some of his sleep science stuff online. He's actually a Navy SEAL physician that the team's members, and you can imagine if our industry, you don't want to show weakness. Well, the Navy SEALs don't ever show weakness, so they would never talk to another doc. Well, this was their doc, and they were all having problems sleeping, whether they're using alcohol, which throws your sleep patterns off, or whatever. He actually looked at quality of sleep, the balance of chemicals, and as you get older, you produce less melatonin. So there's different things you can do to help that. But one of the big things that he recommends is that you have a process where you turn off the electronics, you start to wind down, and you give yourself half hour to an hour prior to actually shutting off the lights and going to sleep, where you just kind of start calming yourself, and it helps put you into a better mindset to get quality sleep.
Okay. Kevin, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the routine is very important where you can. And I know we're pulled in a lot of different directions, and particularly staff who work the 24-hour schedule and how that impacts. And I think that's a whole separate webinar discussion. But being able to judge your own quality of sleep and how you feel when you wake up in the morning. Because I knew that when I was just getting 5 hours of sleep, I wasn't functioning at peak performance for that day, where
Right.
in most cases I needed to be functioning at peak performance. So forcing yourself to get into the routine and being able to carve out that time for good quality sleep is
Okay.
extremely important.
Good. Thank you. All right, let's start to wrap this up here with our final question. If you knew back when you were active what you know today, what advice would you give our attendees on how to manage stress? Norvin, I'll come to you first.
Easier said than done, but create balance. You heard us talk throughout the webinar today that we need to focus on the 5 F's, as John put it. But that, if I were to be introspective and honest with myself, historically, the imbalance of all the things that we do took away from the quality of almost everything we do. So create balance as much as you can and use checkpoints between yourselves, your peers, your significant others to help maintain that balance.
All right, thank you. Kevin?
I think I'm going to be repeating a few things that I believe are important. And there are things that I'm going to mention that I learned later in my tenure as chief that I applied. So here it goes. You need to find a way not to stress about everything and worry, because issues have a way of working their way out. It's very difficult to think about 7 or 8 or 10 moves out to get an issue addressed when you're at step 1 or 2. And so it's important to let these issues unfold and get it into the direction that you need to get it to move into, with the help of your staff, not only the staff in your department or your fire rescue system, but also your bosses as well. You have attorneys, budget officers, all kinds of resources out there. The second thing is that I learned after I retired was that the chief and everybody needs to use the behavioral support systems that you have. So if there's psychological support, take advantage of it. Um, and once you get in there and have a few sessions, um, you may think that, oh, I don't need it. But once you do it, I'm willing to bet that you'll realize how much better you are because you did. Um, and think of going through your career as that series of sprints that you have a work day, but you have other parts of what you have in your life that causes recovery before that next sprint.
All right. Well, thank you very
Oh,
much. We've
diet,
got it.
exercise. We mentioned diet and
Yep.
exercise.
Yep. We have some people in the chat session. I don't know. I haven't seen any questions, but I want to thank both of you for doing this today. I think we've shared some pretty valid information for fire chiefs and other officers to learn how to live a healthier life, and that's what we all want. You know, every one of us, and I'm looking because we probably have all males on here today, is you want to walk your daughter down the aisle. You don't want somebody else to do that. Well, you're going to help ensure that if you take care of yourself. So I don't see any questions popping up here. So again, I'll go. Norvin, you got any closing comment?
Yeah, one, thanks, Kevin and John, for being here. Thanks everyone online for participating in this. Take what we talked about, and I challenge you to start to create a culture within your organization that can start to engage these ideas and these concepts that we talked about and then move forward. It takes time to create a culture, but start today, and it will be better for later this generation and the next generations in the service. Thanks, guys.
All right, we got Yusuf, our friend from Ghana, is raising his hand, and now I'm trying to see how do I get Candace. I don't know where you're at, but I don't know how you help me get his for him to be able to ask a question. Yusuf, can you type your question in and send it to us?
In the chat.
Yeah, he's in the chat. And he's got me a note says raising your hand. So Candace just sent him a note. So please type your question in this chat window. So while Yusuf is getting his question, I'll let Kevin make any closing comments, and then we'll get Yusuf's question.
Well, I want to recognize everybody who's on the webinar today for recognizing the subject as an important one for the fire service and for each of us individually. It was great having the honor of doing this webinar with John and Norvin. So thank you both as well. You have to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
and
that's a
take care of yourself.
Good way to end it. Very good. Take care of yourself. All right, Yusuf said okay. We'll give him a second here to see if he has a question or if he was just raising his hand. Let us know he was still there. But yep, Yusuf is still there. I just talked to Yusuf, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, and talked to his boss as well in Ghana. And sort of funny that he came on here today because I'm going to tell him I talked about you last night. I was with some missionaries that have been to Ghana, and I said, well, heck, next time you go, you need to let me know because I know some pretty high up fire officials down there. And this guy's one of them is the guy is a assistant fire chief in the department, and his wife is into missionary work. So they both go and do that, and they've been to like 8 different countries doing missionary work. So
Nice.
so they're talking about maybe they go back to Ghana. Maybe they'll take me with them, Yusuf. That'd make you happy. Well, I don't see a question
So
coming
while
from
Yusuf is doing that, John.
Pardon?
maybe if he's got a couple seconds to go, what I was going to say, since you were facilitating this for us, and thanks for that, what were your biggest takeaways from all the things we talked about over the last 55 minutes or so? What would you say, John? Because I know you take notes and you think through this stuff. Would you summarize for our people as takeaways?
Okay, so you need quit worrying about everything. I think Zig Ziglar is the one that said it to me, or you said it in a program, is we worry about things that end up not happening.
Yep.
And, we make it worse by worrying about it. And I was horrible at it. Norvin, your comments about, how to be a servant leader, but not sacrifice yourself to be a servant leader. I think that was a big one. The spirituality aspect of it, authentic leadership, there. And Norvin, you talked about creating a balance. I mean, if you're going to look at, a big takeaway from this is create a balance in your life, and that will help you do better as a leader and help you be healthier. And then our conversations on nutrition and eating right, I think, are, again, that's not talked about very often. And the quality of sleep is another issue that is pretty new. The IFF did some sleep studies a couple years ago, but when we've done something 3 or 4 years ago, people go, well, "That's a long time ago." No, it's not.
Mhm.
The fire service has been around since 1736, and so we're still doing some of the same things. So, all right. So, okay, Yusuf wants to say, as one of our panelists said, delegate. Okay, good point, Yusuf. I think we need to have succession plans as well.
Yes.
So, good couple things that we didn't talk about is, Kevin, you did mention delegate and how important that is, because it's not always the top dog who has to do all the work. And then, yeah, succession planning. I think, Kevin, you sort of said that a little bit of, your retirement date, quit putting it off.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to us. We're like, oh, well, I'm still needed. When I told the state fire marshal, my boss, when I was the fire academy director, I retired. I'm going to retire. Here's my date. I walked out, went around to my staff, started shaking my hands, and they said, "You're smiling." I go, "You're right, because I'm done. I'm going to work the next 6 months, but I've set my deadline. I know when I'm done, and I'm happy about it." So, Yusuf, thank you very much for that comment about succession plans. So, all right. Any questions, comments? Not. We're going to wrap this up. Guys, we came to 58 minutes to get this done. So we were somewhat, thought maybe we might only take 30 minutes and that sort of thing. But I think we all had lots of good things to share with you, and hopefully you got some things out of it. So we thank you for your participation. You'll get a link for a survey. As I said, for some of you that maybe weren't on at the very beginning, there is now a blank certificate in the handout section that you can print off, fill in, put in the date, and so you can have a certificate for your department to give you, maybe if you need training credit. So with that, I'm going to say God bless each and every one of you. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you.